Thank you so much, Chairs Madero, Chairs Eldridge, esteemed committee colleagues. I'm going to be very quick on two bills, and actually that testimony was sublime on S 1936 and H 3030, an act maintaining a state disaster relief and resiliency trust fund. So thanks to the legislature and the governor in the last session, we set up this fund. And the legislature has seen fit to work with the administration to put $14 million, which after we reconcile this current budget, that's the amount that we expect will be appropriated. And we just, in fact, met with A&F, and they are proceeding apace in good conversations with MEMA and MDAR and other relevant agencies to set up the structure that will allow for the quick appropriation. As my colleagues know who have served longer than I, in past disasters when they've struck, it really has been whether or not the legislature was in a position to respond, not when, but if. And our municipalities, our individuals have been at the mercy of that if, not because the legislature or the administration wasn't inclined to support our constituents, but there wasn't a structure set up, and sometimes we just couldn't move that quickly. So in my short time in the legislature, I have seen two instances in my own district, and there have been, of course, many more, where the legislature has pivoted quickly. The most recent is in 2023 with the great floods and frost and freezes. The floods were the sort of ending of a terrible year for farmers, growers, and producers. And the legislature was extraordinary. We came through with $20 million for farmers. It was unprecedented, and $15 million for municipalities. And I'm happy to tell you that because of that money, not one farmer went out of business. And they suffered catastrophic losses. And they remember that Massachusetts cared for them. So this was one answer to that, but we missed something when we did it, which was a recurring revenue source. And why is that important? Well, that's important because in some years, it will be difficult to carve out $14 million, right? And we don't want it to be a question, again, of if. We want it to be when. When there is a disaster, there will be a meaningful pot of money. It's not going to be everything. We didn't cover all the losses in 23 at all. A fraction, but it was meaningful enough to help these good people. So that's this. So it just presumes this is one way to do it. Maybe there's another way that you like better, but this takes 10% off the capital gains before it hits the rainy day tax, and we think it's some poetic because, of course, it was raining in 2023. You'll forgive that. And the last I'll just say is S 1939 and H 3032, which is an act to reform payments in lieu of taxes on state-owned lands. I have both of these bills with the fabulous Natalie Blais. I will say that the governor has set up a state-owned pilot program. We are delighted by that. It is her understanding that the formula as it is now does not help the towns I work for in the least, and it also doesn't value what we call ecosystem services, so the work of the land. So with that, I would just ask for your favorable consideration, and thank you so much for your time.
Questions from committee members, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Comerford, thank you so much for explaining more detail the resilience bill, and I know you led in creating it the previous session in the budget. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how some of the farms or other entities were benefited from that past investment.
Thank you so much. Two things happened when the floods hit western Massachusetts, the Connecticut River Valley. Some of the crops were swept away. Some they lost topsoil, they lost all the crops. Some of the hardest hit was Rep. Gomez's district in Hadley. Other crops were actually soiled because at the same time the water was rising, our water sewer infrastructure actually didn't hold in the Connecticut River Valley, and so raw sewage was dumped into the Connecticut. So when the floods happened, otherwise okay crops, like they weren't swept away, they hadn't fruited yet, which is one of the tests, they couldn't be picked because of the sewage. So it was immediate cash injection for those farmers that had lost crops. But more than that, Senator, they've had to do a lot to rebuild the topsoil in these farms, and they've had to do a lot to rent fields while this topsoil is healing because now it's full of bacteria in some instances. And they had to do all of that while taking in the losses, getting extra people power. So that's in part how they used it, right? The actual cash injection that let them respond and make up the revenue. I should just say, and I'm sure you're following this, FEMA at the federal level is pulling back from disaster relief. Perhaps you've heard this, and I'm not going to duplicate this, but this is very critical. They're both pulling back the actual services, but then actually the money to states. So if we don't do this, it's true. And states across the United States are talking about this because I participate in all these panels. They're doing what we're doing now to get a revenue source because they know they will not be able to guarantee FEMA help. And the last thing I'll just say, we were one of only 2 states in the nation that hadn't set up a structure. And after 23, I went looking to understand what states were doing. And in fact, many states had set up a structure. They don't have a recurring source. They are looking for that now. So states across the U.S., I think we're going to see, are saying, you know what, we need to actually do this because we're not going to have a federal partner for some time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
Any other questions from committee
Oh,
members?
sorry, Chair. I'm getting up.
Please, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator, very much. So quick question. In a given year, if there were no need to, or if no money would draw, if we did not have any type of either natural or
Right. It would
or
accrue.
man-made, it would accrue. So it encumbers, it rolls over.
Exactly, and that's the benefit of this, right? Because we don't need this every year. Let's everybody knock something around you, right? We won't need this every year, and so then we get a healthy balance, and we can actually have a meaningful response. So the idea is it would accrue, and it's the cap gains before it hits the rainy day fund. So it is revenue that we count on, right? And I know we're talking a lot about the rainy day fund now, but it is I think it's an appropriate thing to lean on in this time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Chairs.
much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Oh, I'm not going to get up out of my seat.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Chair.